All right, ladies, let's get real for a second. You've been told to be polite, to play it safe, to be the good girl, haven't you? But here's the thing. When it comes to attraction, connection, and real chemistry, safe, he doesn't want a perfectly filtered version of you. He doesn't want a woman who's always agreeable, always quiet, always nice. He wants you to be naughty. When people hear the word naughty, their minds often jump to the most superficial interpretation, something cheeky, risque, or inappropriate. But in the context of attraction, connection, and emotional dynamics, naughty goes far deeper. It's not about breaking rules just for the thrill. It's not about being outrageous or overly provocative. It's about embodying a kind of playful confidence that is magnetic, refreshing, and yes, irresistible. And if there's one thing that captivates a man's attention and admiration, it's a woman who moves through the world like she knows her worth, without having to say it out loud. There's something undeniably powerful about a woman who can challenge a man playfully, tease him without fear, and say something daring without needing validation for it. That power doesn't come from being mean-spirited or rude. It comes from being secure. It's a kind of boldness that says, I don't need to be chosen, I choose. That right there is the essence of what naughty really means in the emotional sense. It's a signal of comfort within yourself. A woman who can make a witty remark, give a knowing look, or say no with a smile is not being disrespectful. She's revealing her standards without explanation, and that's incredibly attractive. Men are drawn to confidence, but not the loud, showy kind that demands attention. They're drawn to the kind of confidence that lets a woman be unapologetically herself. A woman who can say something cheeky in the middle of a serious conversation and break the tension without losing the message, that's a woman who commands a room without needing to dominate it. That's the kind of presence that keeps a man intrigued. Because when you show up as someone who doesn't walk on eggshells, who doesn't filter herself down to fit someone else's expectations, you give off the signal that you're emotionally available without being emotionally dependent. That's where the deeper meaning of naughty starts to shine. It's not about seduction, it's about subcommunication. It's the energy you bring when you trust yourself enough to stop performing and start expressing. It's when you can be spontaneous, unpredictable in the best way, and a little bit daring, without ever compromising your integrity. A woman like that doesn't need to act a certain way to hold a man's attention. Her ability to express herself, to play with the moment, and to bend the rules without breaking trust, that's what creates emotional excitement. Think about the moments in a relationship that people remember the most. It's rarely the planned, polished moments. It's the side glances, the inside jokes, the spontaneous laughter, the unexpected comment that makes him think, who is this woman? That's what naughty does. It disrupts the pattern. It keeps things from going stale. It's the antidote to predictability. When a woman can playfully challenge a man, flirt with subtlety, and not take herself too seriously, she shows that she's not just present in the moment, she owns the moment. It's a beautiful paradox. The more comfortable you are being a little naughty, a little unconventional, a little rebellious, the more you demonstrate that you don't fear disapproval. That freedom signals inner strength. And strength is incredibly attractive, not because it's aggressive, but because it's stable. And that kind of confidence doesn't just invite attraction, it commands it. A man will sense, often unconsciously, that you're not trying to prove anything, that your presence, your words, your energy, they all come from a place of truth, not performance. Even in the early stages of dating, the woman who is willing to say something bold, who doesn't just nod politely to keep the peace, but instead injects her real personality into the exchange, that's the woman who's remembered. That's the woman who disrupts the emotional autopilot. She doesn't just respond, she creates moments. That's what makes her magnetic. She doesn't need to show off to stand out. Her ability to playfully push back, to challenge the moment, to flirt with her words, it all signals one thing. She's not afraid of how she's perceived. And that's where the confidence becomes crystal clear. It's not just what she says, it's how she says it. It's in the ease of her body language, the mischief in her smile, the unshakable calm in her tone. Confidence doesn't always announce itself with volume. Sometimes it whispers through a joke. Sometimes it dances through a side comment. Sometimes it shows up when she says something daring and doesn't look around for approval afterward. When we think about desire, most people jump straight to intensity, passion, chemistry, physical attraction. All of those are real, of course. But what so many people miss is the one ingredient that breathes life into desire over time: playfulness. Playfulness is what makes connection feel alive. It creates unpredictability, it breaks down walls, and most importantly, it allows two people to step out of performance and into authenticity. When you're playful, you invite the other person to relax, to engage, to enjoy not just who you are, but how they feel when they're around you. Desire doesn't thrive in heavy, overly serious spaces. Yes, there are moments for depth and vulnerability, but if there's no lightness in the emotional rhythm of your interactions, everything starts to feel like effort. That's why playfulness is such a powerful tool in attraction. It removes pressure. It gives both people permission to explore the connection without constantly analyzing or evaluating it. When you're playful, you're showing that you're not there to control the moment. You're there to enjoy it. And that ease is what pulls someone closer without you having to push. Playfulness creates space for curiosity. It opens the door to teasing, to light challenge, to that dance of energy that keeps two people leaning forward. When a woman brings a little mischief into the interaction, a knowing smile, a sarcastic comment, a flirty eye roll, it sends a signal. It says, "I'm not just here to be liked, I'm here to have fun. And if you can't keep up, you'll get left behind." That signal is irresistible because it shows you have standards. It shows that you're not simply going through the motions. You're present, you're engaged, and you're not afraid to stir the pot just enough to keep things interesting. There's a magic that happens when you play with someone emotionally. You're not just talking, you're creating energy. You're building tension, releasing it, and then building it again. You're turning a basic conversation into an experience. That's what makes someone remember you. People forget words, but they never forget how you made them feel. And if you can make someone feel alive, amused, slightly thrown off in the best way, they'll crave that feeling, they'll crave you. The beauty of playfulness is that it brings your real personality forward. It's hard to fake. When you're being playful, you're not scripting, you're responding in real time. And that responsiveness shows that you're comfortable in your own skin. You're not overly cautious, not filtering every word to be safe. You're in flow. You're giving permission to yourself and by extension to the other person to be human, to be imperfect, to laugh, to mess up, to recover. That kind of freedom creates intimacy because underneath the laughter, what you're really communicating is, I'm okay with all of this. I'm okay with me, and I'm okay with you. Men don't always know how to ask for playfulness, but they feel the absence of it immediately. When things feel too formal, too heavy, or too polite, they sense that something is missing. They might not be able to articulate it, but they feel it. And when a woman walks in with a spark, when she can joke, improvise, throw out a playful challenge, that's when everything shifts. The interaction starts to breathe. It becomes fun, and fun is deeply underrated in attraction. People forget that fun is foreplay for emotional connection. It's what gets someone addicted to being around you, not because you're trying to impress them, but because you bring a sense of lightness into their life that they don't get from everyone else. Being playful doesn't mean being immature. It means being emotionally agile. It means knowing when to pull someone in with charm, when to push them back with sass, and when to flip the script entirely. It's about balance. The woman who can shift the emotional tone, who knows how to tease without being mean, to flirt without being desperate, she becomes the spark in the room. She becomes the one who can't be easily categorized, who keeps people guessing, who makes a man feel like he's not just dating someone, he's dancing with her energy. Playfulness also shows emotional security. It takes confidence to be the first one to make a joke, to break the ice, to say something unexpected. It shows you're not waiting for someone else to take the lead. You're creating the moment yourself. That energy is contagious. When you're playful, you're not only showing confidence, you're inviting someone else to rise to that level with you. You're giving them a glimpse of the kind of dynamic they could have with you. A relationship that's not just loving, but alive. One that's filled with connection, spontaneity, and emotional depth, hidden in laughter and mischief. One of the biggest myths people carry into relationships is the idea that being agreeable makes you more lovable. That saying yes more often, being flexible to the point of bending over backwards, or accommodating someone's every whim somehow earns you a deeper place in their heart. But the truth couldn't be further from that. In fact, the very thing that often makes someone captivating, even irresistible, is their ability to say no, to draw a line, to have a boundary and hold it with calm, unapologetic strength. Boundaries are not walls, they're invitations. They say, this is who I am. If you want to be close to me, it's not about changing me, it's about respecting me. And here's the paradox. The person who has clear boundaries actually feels safer to be close to, because you're not guessing where you stand with them. You know, you see it in the way they carry themselves, in the way they calmly assert what they're okay with and what they're not. That clarity becomes magnetic. People are drawn to it not because it makes life easier, but because it makes life real. Men especially respond to boundaries in ways most people don't expect. It challenges them, not in a confrontational way, but in a compelling one. It signals this woman isn't here to win me, she's here to see if I measure up. That's powerful. That flips the dynamic. Suddenly the man goes from thinking he's in control of the situation to realizing he's the one who's being evaluated. That's when real desire begins. Not when someone is available at every moment, but when someone is available with standards. Boundaries show self-respect, and self-respect is deeply attractive. A woman who honors her time, her values, and her emotional energy becomes a woman a man doesn't want to take for granted. She teaches him how to treat her, not through lectures or ultimatums, but through consistency. Through the choices she makes, the things she's willing to tolerate, and the things she walks away from without drama. That quiet strength doesn't need to be explained. It's felt, it's recognized immediately, even if it's never discussed. So often, people fear that setting a boundary means they'll be rejected, that someone will lose interest if they stop saying yes to everything. But the opposite usually happens. The right person steps up, the wrong person fades out. And in both cases, you win. Because what you're doing when you set a boundary is filtering. You're saying, only those who value me will stay. That filter doesn't make you less lovable. It makes you exclusive. And exclusivity is what builds real desire. No one treasures what they think they can get too easily. But everyone values what they have to earn. A woman without boundaries may receive attention, but a woman with boundaries earns respect, and respect is the soil where long-term attraction grows. Because desire without respect is just infatuation. It's fleeting, it burns bright and then disappears. But when a man desires you and respects you, that's when you've created something sustainable. And that happens when you're willing to say, this is what I need, even if it means risking the loss of something superficial in exchange for something meaningful. Boundaries also protect your energy, and when your energy is protected, you show up as your best self. You're not depleted, not resentful, not exhausted from giving too much. You're radiant. You're emotionally available and emotionally intelligent. That balance becomes obvious in your presence. You're not looking to be saved. You're not trying to prove your worth through overgiving. You already know your worth, and that knowledge doesn't just live in your mind, it shows up in your behavior. There's something incredibly compelling about someone who can listen deeply but doesn't lose themselves in the process, who can be kind without becoming a doormat, who can love without abandoning their own needs. That kind of balance creates polarity. It creates the healthy tension that keeps both people invested, because when a man knows that your heart is open, but not without discernment, he values the access he gets. He doesn't feel entitled to it. And that sense of earned connection, that's what deepens desire. It's not about being hard to get, it's about being hard to forget. And you become unforgettable when people feel that being in your life is a privilege, not a guarantee. That every yes you give has weight, because you're not afraid to say no. That kind of energy doesn't just attract, it elevates. It causes someone to rise to meet you, to think twice before taking you for granted, to work harder to be part of your world, because they know that world isn't open to just anyone. There's a kind of pressure that lives in so many of us, especially when it comes to dating and relationships, the pressure to be perfect, to always say the right thing, to look flawless, to never show weakness, to present the version of ourselves that seems the most impressive. It starts subtly. You edit your text, you overthink your tone, you tell stories that make you seem a little more polished than you really feel, and before you know it, you're showing up as a curated version of yourself rather than the real thing. But here's the truth that flips everything upside down. Perfection doesn't create connection. Authenticity does. People aren't drawn to your highlight reel, they're drawn to your humanness, to the little things you reveal without realizing it, to the moments you laugh at yourself, to the way you talk about your weird quirks without apology. Those are the things that cut through the noise. They signal that you're not performing, you're just being. And being fully, freely, unapologetically is what makes people feel safe around you. It disarms their own defenses, it invites them to be more themselves too. That kind of space, that's where a real connection begins. There's a certain kind of bravery in being authentic. It doesn't mean spilling every insecurity or laying all your emotions bare within 5 minutes of meeting someone. It's about alignment. It's about being consistent with who you are internally and how you show up externally. It's when you can share your thoughts without filtering them down to be more likable. When you can let someone see your flaws, not because you don't care, but because you know they don't define your worth. That level of self-trust is what makes authenticity so powerful. It's not messy, it's not chaotic, it's honest. So many people chase perfection thinking it will make them more attractive, but in reality, perfection often creates distance. It feels unattainable, intimidating, even fake. People don't connect with perfect, they connect with real. The moment you stop trying to impress someone and instead let them feel you, that's the moment everything changes. Because connection isn't built on admiration alone, it's built on relatability, on the shared feeling of I see you and you see me. That only happens when you stop trying to be something and start simply being. Think about the people in your life you've felt the closest to. Were they the ones who always had it together? Or were they the ones who could be vulnerable, who let you see the cracks in their armor? That's where emotional intimacy lives, in the places where masks come off, where imperfections are not hidden but embraced, not because they're your identity, but because they're part of your truth, and truth is magnetic, truth is unforgettable. Authenticity also breeds confidence in a way perfection never can. When you chase perfection, your confidence is fragile. It's tied to how well you're doing, how much approval you're getting, how few mistakes you've made. But when you live from authenticity, your confidence becomes rooted. It's grounded in the unshakable knowing that you are enough as you are, not because you're flawless, but because you're whole. And that kind of confidence doesn't need loud statements or big gestures. It shows up in the calm way you own your story, in the relaxed way you walk into a room, in the quiet certainty that you don't need to prove yourself to be valued. Men notice authenticity, even if they don't always have the language for it. It's in the way you answer a question without trying to make it sound impressive, in the way you laugh without worrying how it looks, in the way you can disagree respectfully instead of nodding along to keep the peace. Those are the moments that create sparks. Because they're real, they show depth, and depth is what keeps someone coming back. Not just because they're intrigued, but because they feel like they've found something rare, something solid, something that doesn't disappear the moment things get uncomfortable. When you prioritize authenticity over perfection, you stop trying to be someone else's fantasy and start becoming someone's reality. And that's far more powerful, because fantasies fade, but real, layered, emotionally honest people, they're unforgettable. They're the ones you think about long after the conversation ends. Not because they impressed you, but because they made you feel something real, something grounded, something safe and exciting all at once. There's a big difference between being open to love and chasing someone who hasn't earned it. Too often, women are taught to prove themselves, to be accommodating, to go the extra mile, even when someone is giving the bare minimum in return. The energy becomes one-sided. You start doing the work of both people in the relationship. You initiate all the plans, keep the conversation alive, stay emotionally invested even when he's giving you crumbs, and somewhere along the way, you start to believe that if you just do more, care more, give more, he'll finally step up. But attraction doesn't work like that. Desire isn't sparked by convenience, it's sparked by challenge. Challenging a man doesn't mean playing games or being difficult for the sake of it. It means showing up with standards. It means requiring effort, not in a punitive way, but in a way that reflects your self-worth. A woman who challenges a man is a woman who says, you don't just get access to me because you're interested. You get access to me because you've earned it. That kind of presence shifts the entire dynamic. It moves you out of the passenger seat and puts you in control of your own experience, not by controlling him, but by controlling yourself. When you chase, the message you're sending, whether you mean to or not, is that his attention is more valuable than your self-respect. That your time and energy are something to be traded for affection. And that's where things begin to unravel. Because as soon as you start seeking validation, you hand over your power. You become reactive. You wait for the text, hope for the call, analyze every small gesture, and all that mental energy becomes a weight you carry, dragging your confidence down with it. But when you challenge a man, when you show him that you're not just a passive participant in this connection, you're evaluating it, assessing whether he brings something meaningful to the table, everything changes. Men rise to meet standards when they sense that you're not afraid to walk away. That quiet confidence, that internal sense of, I know what I bring, and I won't settle for less, speaks louder than any clever line or dating strategy. It creates tension. Not the unhealthy kind, but the kind that keeps things exciting, the kind that makes a man want to pursue, not because he feels pressure, but because he feels purpose. There's something incredibly powerful about a woman who doesn't just give her time to anyone, who listens more than she reveals, who isn't easily swayed by charm alone. That doesn't mean being cold. It means being intentional. It means that even in moments of attraction, you're still grounded. You still know that chemistry without consistency is meaningless. You still know that interest without effort is, and because you know that, you don't chase, you don't convince, you don't audition. You challenge, not by being harsh, but by being discerning. Challenging a man is also about emotional maturity. It's not about playing hard to get, it's about being hard to forget. That happens when you speak your truth calmly, when you can say, this doesn't work for me, without flinching. When you can step back without making a scene, that kind of grace, that kind of certainty, it lingers, it stays with him. It makes him realize that your value isn't dependent on his recognition of it. It already exists, and if he doesn't see it, someone else will. You don't need to chase someone who's right for you. When a man is genuinely interested, you'll feel it. You won't have to wonder, decode, or perform. But even when there's interest, your job isn't to meet him halfway at every turn. It's to see if he's willing to meet you. It's to observe whether his actions align with his words, whether he's consistent, whether he shows up not just when it's convenient, but when it matters. That's the difference between someone who likes the idea of you and someone who actually values you. The irony is, the more you chase, the more you signal that you don't believe you're worthy of being pursued. But the moment you stop chasing and start challenging, you shift the balance. You stop trying to prove your worth and start embodying it. You let him feel what it's like to be in the presence of someone who knows who she is, someone who doesn't bend just to keep someone interested, someone who invites, inspires, and raises the standard, not through force, but through clarity, through boundaries, through self-respect wrapped in feminine confidence. There's a version of you that the world has conditioned you to present. The polished version, the socially acceptable version, the one that fits in, pleases others, and keeps the peace. That version has been carefully shaped by years of feedback, praise, criticism, and experience. It's the version that smiles when she doesn't feel like it, agrees when she wants to challenge, holds back when she wants to leap. And while that version might help you navigate professional situations or keep things smooth on the surface, it's not the version that creates real, lasting magnetic attraction. Because the truth is, a man doesn't fall in love with your performance. He falls in love with your presence. He falls in love with the parts of you that can't be faked. When you put on a persona in dating, a character that's always agreeable, endlessly positive, or flawlessly composed, you might get attention, but you won't get intimacy. Because intimacy requires honesty. It requires edges. It requires emotional range. A man doesn't crave a perfect woman who never disagrees, never challenges, never reveals vulnerability. He craves a woman who feels real. Someone he can touch emotionally, not just admire from a distance. That's the difference between being liked and being felt. One is surface level, the other leaves a mark. So many people approach dating like an audition. They say what they think the other person wants to hear. They filter their emotions so they don't come across as too much. They nod along instead of voicing their truth, and the result is a connection that may seem smooth at first, but lacks depth. It lacks spark, because attraction without authenticity fades fast. It doesn't create the kind of emotional gravity that pulls someone back in. It doesn't create that sense of, I want more of her, not because she's perfect, but because she's real. The real you is where your power lives, not the edited version. The real you has opinions, has quirks, has a specific laugh and a way of talking that isn't copied from anyone else. The real you gets passionate about weird little things, gets nervous sometimes stumbles over her words when she's excited or vulnerable. And that's what makes you unforgettable, because that's what's true, and truth is the foundation of desire. Not performance, not politeness, truth. When a man sees that you're willing to be yourself, even when it's not the safest or most strategic thing to do, it builds trust. And trust is sexy. Trust is rare. When you let someone meet the real you, you're saying, I'm not here to be chosen for the version of me you find most convenient. I'm here to see if you're a fit for my actual life, my actual values, my actual energy. That shift is powerful. It takes the focus off approval and puts it back where it belongs, on alignment. And alignment is what creates sustainability. Because no matter how good your persona is, you can't keep it up forever. Eventually the mask slips. And if someone fell for the mask, They won't know how to handle what's underneath. But if someone falls for you, all of you, there's nothing to maintain. You just show up. Being real isn't about oversharing or being emotionally messy. It's about being emotionally honest. It's the confidence to say, this is how I feel, even if it might not be met with immediate validation. It's the strength to say, this matters to me, even if it's vulnerable. It's the presence to stay grounded in who you are, especially in moments when you feel the temptation to become what you think someone else wants. That kind of self-anchoring is rare, and it's what makes someone stand out, not because they're loud or performative, but because they're clear. They don't need to manipulate the room, they just are. Men notice that. They may not always have the language for it, but they feel it. They feel the difference between a woman who's managing the moment and a woman who's living it. The woman who's managing is careful, strategic, always calculating. The woman who's living is responsive, in flow, rooted in her truth. That difference is electric. It changes the energy of every interaction. It turns a date from something forgettable into something that lingers in the back of his mind. It's the thing he tells his friends about, not because you said the perfect thing, but because you made him feel something honest. He doesn't remember you because you said all the right things or looked exactly like his ideal. He remembers the way you looked at him when you were completely present, the way you laughed when something genuinely caught you off guard, the way you didn't try to impress him, but somehow did anyway because you were so unapologetically yourself. That's the kind of impact that can't be imitated. It comes from the woman who knows she has nothing to prove. Nothing to chase, nothing to pretend, just a truth to live from and a connection to be open to if it matches her truth.